As the Artemis II astronauts completed mankind's first lunar mission in more than 50 years, they wore notable watches from Omega and Breitling, continuing a proud tradition of serious timepieces in space exploration. In this video, we'll discuss the watches used as tools by astronauts, both then and now, because even beyond Earth's atmosphere, a watch is never just a watch. Watches of Espionage is curated by a former CIA case officer with a passion for timepieces. On the WOE YouTube channel, we explore the intersection of watches and the military, intelligence, and national security. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be informed when we release new videos. From its earliest days, the history of manned spaceflight is inextricably linked to horology. In the pre-digital age, watches were used for everything from timing critical engine burns to tracking multiple time zones or managing experiments in microgravity. Today, despite incredible advances in technology and the increasing influence of the private sector, watches continue to play a role for astronauts traveling to and from the International Space Station or continuing mankind's legacy of lunar exploration with the modern Artemis missions. While digital tool watches have all but replaced mechanical timepieces, we would argue that having a mechanical watch in space, at least as a backup, still makes sense. However, as is so often the case with watches today, marketing clouds the picture. A lot more watches boast associations with space travel than have left Earth's atmosphere, and here we'll stick to watches that have actually been used as tools in spaceflight. Despite the long shadow cast by Omega, the first Swiss watch worn in space was actually from Breitling. Scott Carpenter, the aviator, test pilot, aeronautical engineer, astronaut, and aquanaut, famously wore a watch that would become known as the Cosmonaut, a 24-hour version of the Navitimer customized at Carpenter's request for 1962's Mercury Atlas VII mission. The actual watch, now part of Breitling's private collection, was unfortunately flooded during Carpenter's egress from the Aurora 7 spacecraft. Over the years, there have been several limited editions of the Cosmonaut honoring Carpenter, as well as the new Navitimer B02 Cosmonaut Artemis II, which was unveiled on the wrist of Artemis II mission commander Reed Wiseman before blastoff and used as a tool by the entire crew throughout. This was likely a carefully orchestrated marketing initiative on Breitling's behalf, but compared to many luxury watch marketing campaigns featuring celebrity ambassadors, we'll take it. Another astronaut who wore a Breitling is Claudie Aigneret, the first French woman in space, who wore a limited edition Breitling Aerospace for a Soyuz mission to the Mir space station in 1996. When it comes to space travel, the clear leader is Omega, and no exploration of space watches would be complete without the Speedmaster, a watch officially used by NASA since 1965. However, the Speedmaster had already been to space on the wrist of astronaut Wally Schirra on Mercury 8 in 1962. Starting in 1964, NASA's testing process for an issue watch, which also included Rolex, Longines Wittnauer, and Bulova, was rigorous, and the Speedmaster was the only watch to survive and become officially flight qualified for all manned space missions in 1965. Weeks later, a Speedmaster was worn on Gemini 3, and in 1969, Buzz Aldrin famously wore his Speedmaster on the moon on Apollo 11, solidifying the watch's position as the moon watch. As you'd expect, Omega utilizes its space and lunar history for marketing's sake, sometimes to an obnoxious extent. But the laurels are well earned, and Omega has continued its official relationship with NASA for the past 6 decades. A Speedmaster's biggest moment in space exploration was arguably when Jack Swigert used his Speedy to time a critical 14-second engine burn that likely saved the lives of the astronauts on Apollo 13. Today, while the Omega Speedmaster still makes the rounds, having been worn by at least a couple of the astronauts on Artemis II, all NASA astronauts are issued the analog-digital X33 Gen 2. Designed in collaboration with space shuttle astronauts and military pilots and released in 1998, the X-33's relationship with NASA is intriguing in that it doesn't appear to be for marketing purposes, considering the issued version of the watch hasn't been for sale since 2006, now only available through military and government sales channels. Rumor has it that NASA also allows astronauts to buy back their space-flown X-33s with their names engraved on the back, a pretty cool souvenir. The X-33 has become what is likely the most ubiquitous watch in modern spaceflight, though many other timepieces have been used as tools of space exploration. This video is brought to you by Roka, a Texas-based performance eyewear company with strong ties to our community. As followers know, the Roka Barton has been a longtime favorite of WOE and has appeared in various EDC pictures and past gear guides. Roka sunglasses are ultra-light, built with secure retention and premium optics designed to perform in harsh light, heat, sweat, and during movement. They look cool and stay put, so you can stay focused. No slipping, no distractions, no compromises. At its core, Roka is about producing quality tools to unlock human potential. Whether you're training, traveling, or operating in unpredictable environments, Roka is built for those who epitomize the use your tools ethos. If you believe your gear should work as hard as you do, check out Roka. A lesser-known watch with lunar history is the prototype Bulova chronograph worn by Colonel David Scott on Apollo 15. Allegedly given to the astronaut by the brand, Scott elected to wear the Bulova rather than his NASA-issued Speedmaster on the surface of the moon in 1971 because, according to legend, the crystal on his Omega had popped off. In any case, the prototype Bulova, believed to be one of the only privately worn watches ever worn on the lunar surface, sold at auction in 2015 for a staggering $1.6 million, with Bulova launching its modern recreation, the Lunar Pilot, in 2016. A Japanese watchmaker we've called the Toyota of watches, Seiko, boasts its share of legitimate space history, including being responsible for one of the first automatic chronographs worn in space with the reference 6139, worn by Colonel William Pogue during the Skylab 4 mission in 1973 and 1974. Another 6139 was worn by Colonel Richard Covey, a decorated Vietnam fighter pilot on a space shuttle mission in 1985, alongside his NASA-issued Speedmaster. Also in the 1980s, the obscure Seiko A829 rotocall was worn by several astronauts and favored for its multiple time zone tracking, alarms, and timers, all of which were actuated by the rotating bezel, which was more easily managed with gloves. The rotocall feels dated today, but it also marked an important transition from analog timekeeping to the digital tool watches that were widely used by astronauts in the late 80s and 90s. In the arena of spaceflight, Omega rightfully receives much of the attention and marketing benefit, but Rolex is another brand that has been historically favored by astronauts going back to the Apollo days. When it comes to Rolex watches worn in space, there is no better example than a man we like to call the real Captain America, aka former SEAL, medical doctor, and current astronaut Jonny Kim. In 2025, Lieutenant Commander Kim spent around 8 months at the International Space Station, wearing an incredible 7 watches in space, including 3 Rolex models. In order of appearance, Kim wore a Pepsi bezel Rolex GMT Master II, a Daytona, and a Rolex Submariner in what has to be the first instance of a single astronaut using 3 Rolex watches for a single mission. Of course, he also wore an Omega Seamaster Navy SEAL unit watch and the newly released Omega Speedmaster Flight Qualified, meaning Johnny likes what he likes and ain't wearing watches for the marketing suits in Switzerland. Our type of guy. Historically speaking, the Rolex GMT is likely the watch from the crown that is most closely associated with astronauts, having been worn by astronauts Jack Swigert and Edgar Mitchell, who wore a GMT on the moon on Apollo 14 in 1971. The Daytona has also, prior to Kim, been worn in space on at least 2 other occasions. Surprisingly, after Omega, the most commonly worn watch brand in space is likely the humble Japanese G-Shock, specifically the square case DW5600, widely used during the Space Shuttle era. A total of 5 G-Shock references were officially approved for spaceflight, providing low-cost, unrivaled durability, and numerous digital timekeeping functions. For astronauts, a Rolex or an Omega can be used as a tool, but a G-Shock almost always is. And it's no surprise to see a watch with widespread military adoption also playing a significant role in space exploration. Fortis, a Swiss brand dating back to 1912, also has legitimate space connections in the form of its cosmonaut chronograph, which was selected as an official equipment for Russian astronauts starting in 1994. Since then, Fortis watches have been widely worn by Russian astronauts on board Mir and the ISS, and as you'd imagine, Fortis also leans heavily into the association for marketing purposes. The honor of the first watch worn in space goes to a Soviet-made Polyat Sturmansky worn by Yuri Gagarin on 12th of April 1961 during the Vostok 1 mission. Several other Soviet-made brands, including Strela and Raketa, have also been used by Soviet astronauts, particularly during the 1960s and 70s. The aforementioned Jonny Kim also blasted off with a Russian watch in 2025, wearing a rarely seen Sturm unit watch with a mission insignia on the dial, on the outside of his spacesuit. Our exploration of space watches is by no means exhaustive, and almost 2,000 individual timepieces are believed to have been worn in space to date, meaning there are dozens of other brands and hundreds of other watches not covered in this video. A few honorable mentions include the SIN 140S worn by German physicist Reinhard Führer in 1985 and the Gleason Airman worn by astronaut Charles Pete Conrad on Gemini 5 and Gemini 11 in 1965 and 1966, to name only a couple of examples. From a Soviet-issued chronograph to a plastic G-Shock, from a flooded Breitling cosmonaut to the Speedmaster that helped bring Apollo 13 home, the story of space exploration is also the story of men and women who trusted mechanical, and later digital, watches when it mattered most. In an environment where failure isn't an option and redundancy is everything, these watches weren't worn for social media or marketing. They were backups to the backups, useful tools strapped over spacesuits and worn inside spacecraft hurtling into the unknown. As we look ahead to Artemis, Mars, and whatever comes next, one thing is certain: astronauts will continue to use watches, not because they have to, but because they have earned their position as tools and talismans in exploring the final frontier. Beyond Earth's atmosphere, beyond the hype, a watch is still what it's always been: a tool. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, drop a comment, and hit the bell icon to be informed when we release new videos. For even more, check out our website, watchesofespionage.com, for more content, as well as our collection of watch straps and other purpose-built tools designed for our community. Until next time, happy hunting.